Send your spirit and fall afresh on us. Fill us with your power, Lord, and fill us with your love. Lord, send your spirit and fall afresh on us. Fill us with your power, Lord, and fill us with your...
Let me take you now to the story of creation, which in fact you're very, very familiar with. But in the story of creation, as God created, you'll remember that God said, it is good. Everything he created. Do you know that there's only one thing he said, it is bad? He created all things, and then he created Adam. And he looked down and said, this is not good. He should not be alone. Okay? So, everything was good up until he hit Adam, and then this is not good. And then put it. But so everything in essence was created good. However, having created everything and created everything good, the next thing that happened is that when God created us, he gave us authority over everything. And you will find that in both of the stories of creation. The first one, which is the 7 days, and the second creation, which is man and woman created together. But in the two stories of creation, both of which you'll find we're given authority. Now, one of the most important things to understand when you study Scripture is the distinction between power and authority. This is very, very important because Satan has authority, but Satan does not have power. And to understand the two, I'll tell you the distinction. If you have power, it is something that is intrinsic to you. And if you have authority, it's something that's given to you. And I guess I'm not that familiar with your structure here, but I'll take California. California, when a man is appointed governor, one of the things he has the ability to do is to free prisoners, okay? And that's very important because a good percentage of our politicians end up in prison. But this idea he has that he can free prisoners. But understand that's not a power. The power to free prisoners belongs to the state, not to the man. But he has the authority. So if our governor releases a prisoner, you need to know two things. The date when he became governor and the date when he released. If he releases the person 15 minutes before he's governor, they're still a prisoner. And if he releases them 15 minutes after he's gone, they're still a prisoner. He has the authority in a certain length of time, okay? One of the most important things, and I'll tell you, that was well communicated to me when I study Scripture, and every single day, one of the first things I say in the morning is a prayer of thanksgiving that God gave us authority and not power. Because if we had been given power, that's what we would have turned over to Satan. But he didn't. He gave us authority. And then in the sin, we turned the authority over to Satan. When we chose to be obedient to Satan rather than to God, we passed authority over to Satan. But because it's authority, it has an ending. It will end at the end of time. At the end of our world, which is all the authority we could give him, at the end of our world, his authority will end, okay? But Jesus has power. And the examples I kind of like to use, the governor is a good example of authority. A good example would be someone like Billy Graham. Billy Graham was a great and wonderful preacher, whether anyone ever let him preach or not. It was internal to him. No one gave it to him. And if he got up in a pulpit, he could preach. If he didn't get up in a pulpit, you didn't hear him. But the gift was, that's a power. He had the power to preach, okay? So anyway, this authority now has been turned over to Satan. In the Jewish understanding, the distinction between power, between good and evil, is much wider than you and I would see good and evil. For the Jews, everything is evil that is not good. Okay? So we have good and evil. You and I tend to think of good and evil in a moral sense. But I'll give you an example. A Jew would tend to see lorikeets as good and mosquitoes as evil, basically because of the way they deal with us. Okay? Now, personally, I think God should have put more time into lorikeets and less into mosquitoes. But as a matter of fact, mosquitoes in themselves aren't evil. But as soon as authority was turned over to Satan, one of the things that happened was the ability to use nature to torment us. And there are certain things in nature that of their being torment us. You know, I'm sure there are probably people who are tormented by lorikeets, but that isn't the norm, okay? The norm is to be tormented by mosquitoes. So in the Jewish tradition, anything that is negative towards us is part of this distortion of nature. I don't know if many of you have had the opportunity. I do a huge amount of traveling teaching, but it's very interesting to me to go to an area where animals have never been hunted. Do you know that there are animals, because of the size of a human being, there are a lot of animals that look at us and see we're obviously not predators to them, and we're obviously not lunch. And so they just kind of ignore us, you know? And you can go into these areas, you can virtually go up and touch animals. You could, I mean, they have no sense of evil. A good example of this is the Galapagos. That's a good place where you can do that. But all kinds of animals that would normally be afraid are not really afraid. Well, the Jews notice that in the world, that most animals are afraid of us and separated from us, and we call that the distinction between domestic and wild animals. But the idea is that because of this, Satan's able to turn these things and use all kinds of things against us. When we enter heaven, that will be over, okay? And if you're familiar with the lives of saints, one of the major things in the lives of saints in our Catholic tradition is that saints have a greater experience of heaven on the face of the earth than we do, okay? That's why they seem to be so insanely happy, you know, when you see saints doing all kinds of things. But you notice one of the things you'll see in the lives of many saints, if you study the life of St. William, for instance, or St. Francis of Assisi, is they retain this friendliness with animals. That animals are not at odds with them. And ultimately, when we enter heaven, nothing will be at odds with us. Can you imagine a friendly mosquito? You know? I can only hope. You know, I can only hope. I just hope all the mosquitoes I've killed don't gang up on me. But when you and I enter heaven, there will be this sort of thing. Now, what Jesus does in his life, Jesus seeks the restoration of that in many, many things. Like, for instance, you and I wouldn't think it a real evil, you run out of wine. We would think that an inconvenience. But in the Jewish tradition, it's evil to be out of wine. So he will make wine. You know? But if you look very carefully at Jesus, every single step of his life is actually a step against evil in the Jewish understanding. Everything he does is against evil, or pro-life, pro-fullness of life. The first thing I'd like to do is take you a little bit to the book of Revelation. And what I'm going to look at in the book of Revelation is chapter 4, beginning with verse 1. But anyway, we'll look a little at chapter 4, which is the vision of the day of the Lord. A couple things about Revelation. One of the basic ideas in the book of Revelation is that the great danger of evil is it masquerades as good. And it masquerades as good by being totally the opposite of good. And if I were to give you an example, I think anyone, I don't know how much you've studied art, but anyone can look at a Picasso painting and see there's something wrong, okay? That if your eye is on your nose, this is not good, okay? This is not actually good, okay? If you're smoking out your ear, this is not good, okay? So Picasso did this, but one of the interesting things, do you know when you get up in the morning and look in the mirror? That's what you think is you. But do you know there's no other person on the entire face of the earth that sees that? That's actually a total reverse. And because it's a total reverse, everything's in proportion and makes sense. But it's not what anyone sees. And the great work of evil is to make a total difference. If you make a total difference, then everything fits together and it looks right. But it's not good.
Lord, send your spirit and fall afresh on us. Fill us with your power, Lord, and fill us with your love. Lord, send your spirit and fall afresh on us. Fill us with your power, Lord, and fill us with your love.